Hi, I'm here to talk to you about the social media dilemma in education, policy design, implementation, and effects. The dissertation by Rogers, DJ, 2012. Deverly Rogers was a student at the University of Southern California, or USC. Housed in USC is the School of Education, or the Rossier School of Education. According to the school's website, they have been established since 1918. However, education classes have been offered at USC since the late 1800s. One of the highlights of the school is their amazing online MAT program, which was established in 2009. This online program was the first of its kind to be offered from a major research institution. The school boasts many accomplishments, such as their phenomenal PhD program and their EDD programs. The school has been focusing more on innovative practices and forward-thinking processes. During the 2012 and 2017 years, the school is going to be focusing on entrepreneurial approaches to research and development that emphasize collaborative teams and urban education issues. When approaching this dissertation, what I wanted to do was look at how this dissertation applied to my own research. What I'm interested in currently is SIPA regulations, and what I mean by SIPA is the Child Internet Protection Act. This act requires that all public education institutions educate students in social media. In order for schools to acquire E-rate funding, which is a reduction in the costs for hardware and software that all schools have to purchase in order to get wireless internet in their schools and things of that nature, in order to get this funding, schools have to agree that they will educate students in social media. Yet when we look at social media policy, we see that many social media policy implementation protocols and many social media policies that are shared online and throughout the country, many of them are very different. And what I wanted to look at was how these different institutions, these different K-12 institutions, specifically in the state of North Carolina, how they define SIPA regulations for their institution, and how we can begin to look at schools that are effectively implementing social media education and social media policies and educating students, and how even though there are very different approaches to education, they all still receive E-rate funding, and comparing how different schools educate students in social media and comparing their social media policies one to the other and how they implement those policies and how they drafted them. So when approaching this dissertation, I wanted to look at the research questions, which I've provided for you in this slide here. And I wanted to look at how the researcher developed her theoretical framework and her conceptual framework around social media policy and educational technology policy. When I began the critical review and the in-depth review of this dissertation, I wanted to look at first the literature review and see how much background Ms. Rogers went into relating to policy for education and how she developed her understanding of educational policy and how she relayed that to her readers. I thought that the literature review was extensive. I did think that there could have been some more information relating to educational policy compared to some of the other dissertations that I read. I think that the background that Ms. Rogers went into relating to background in social media policy was very extensive, and I think she did a very good job describing the background of social media and how social media policy has come about. I did think that there could have been more of a discussion relating to E-rate funding and regulations relating to social media and educational technology in general, but I still think the literature review was fairly extensive. When looking at the methodology that Ms. Rogers put together and breaking down the methodology, I think that there was many areas that could have been improved relating to validity and reliability of some of the approaches that she used. She triangulated her research methods by looking at documents and policies from all over the country. I didn't think that there was a focus on certain policies in California and only a small percentage of policies around the United States. So it was very difficult to determine whether the conceptual framework that Ms. Rogers developed, whether it could actually be implemented across the United States into other states that had different demographics. I also didn't think there was much of a discussion relating to the demographics of the institutions that Ms. Rogers studied. I did think there was a very thorough discussion relating to the methodology for the research questions that were used. And by research questions, I mean the questions that were used for interviewing. I think that there was a very, very descriptive approach to describing how each question was developed for the interview and how it related to the research questions for the study. I enjoyed her discussion about her focus groups and how they were developed. I think there were some issues relating to online focus groups and whether that data was valid for the study, but I did think that there was a very, very strong discussion relating to how focus groups were designed, yet I did think there was an issue relating to how valid some of the online focus or the online focus group that was used for the study and how that data was disaggregated and how it was utilized for conclusions. I think that the survey was very valid. She collected surveys from over 100 individuals. However, I still think that only focusing on, I know it was not the intention of the author to only focus on California, but I think due to the limitations of the study that and the network of the individuals that the author knew, it was only she was only able to collect data from individuals in California and some other states as much as she could. I think the review of the policy was very good, doing an internet search of available policies to look at them and coding them was very descriptive, and I think that her breakdown of how she coded the information and how she was able to draw her conclusions relating to different themes, relating to her research questions, was very good. I think that relating to her discussion of the data that was obtained, I really enjoyed how the author actually broke down the data and used tables and figures very effectively to relay the information that was obtained and to discuss the data. And it wasn't just simply providing data, it was a very systematic approach to actually discussing how the data was broken down and how it was summarized in a way that conclusions could be developed from the data that was obtained. And I think the tables and figures were very effective for relaying the information to the reader, and they only added a lot more to the dissertation than simply just providing information. They were actually effective for getting the reader involved and actually delving into the data more than simply just looking at it and making sure that, and it was also very easy to find when looking back at the dissertation to look for specific aspects of data that were obtained, pieces of data that were obtained. I think that the conceptual framework that was designed from the author was well grounded in the research literature and similar conceptual frameworks that have been formally designed from other individuals in the field of social media policy. And I've shared that conceptual framework with you here so that you could take a look at it and see how the conceptual framework tied into the author's discussion of policy development and implementation. I overall really enjoyed this dissertation and the process of going through all the steps to break down all of the components that could be applied to my own dissertation and my own work. I think one of the main areas that I really struggled with reading this dissertation and many of the other dissertations was the development of a theoretical framework. I think that many of the authors assume that the theory that they use for designing their study is well known based upon their literature review or based upon their methodology, yet they don't clearly come out and state the specific theories that they use to design their approach for their study. And when there's not that clear statement of a theoretical framework, I think that leads to confusion and questions of how valid the study actually was based upon the author's theoretical framework. And I think that's something at the University of Kentucky that we've really focused on, is how we have developed our theoretical framework relating to the research literature and what specific theories we're using to design our studies. So that's something that I'm really going to focus on with my own dissertation, is how I've developed my theoretical framework, and especially relating to educational policy and how it's grown into this area of social media policy, and how especially in the state of North Carolina, that's been implemented and molded into a specific design for specific K-12 institutions. So overall, I really enjoyed this experience. I'm really glad that I got to take part of it. I'm looking forward to looking at other individuals' dissertations and going through the process. So thank you so much for your time and for watching this video. Have a good day.